And we're live. Welcome back, everybody, to a new episode of the Wheelie Podcast. I'm your host, Micah Toll, and I'm joined again by Electrek Seth Weintraub. How's it going, Seth?
I'm good.
Awesome. And we have got, as usual, a bunch of interesting and very eclectic e-bike and other micromobility related stories this week. It's a real just broad smattering from NYC's new free e-bike program to a South American electric motorcycle startup that has just surpassed 1 million battery swaps. We've got new bicycle handlebars that owe a big thanks to the adult site OnlyFans for coming into fruition. We're going to check out an awesome electric hydrofoil surfboard. And we've got some interesting stories from a recent trip to China that we took. So where are we going to start off with this week, Seth?
Let's start off in New York City. New York City is giving free e-bikes to delivery workers with shoddy or illegal electric bikes.
This is a really cool program. Basically, if anyone's been to New York City in the last, 5 or 6 years, you've probably noticed that delivery is done largely by electric bike in the city. So if you order food or like package delivery, a lot of that stuff is switched over to e-bikes. The problem is a lot of those workers use uncertified e-bikes, meaning they don't have UL certification. They're generally lower cost and they're at a higher risk of fire safety issues. It doesn't mean that the majority of these are catching on fire. They're not, but there is a higher risk there. And so New York City has taken a multi-pronged approach to combat this issue. One of the newest programs they've launched is this trade-in program. So it is open to any food delivery worker who there's a few stipulations. You have to have made at least $1,500 doing food delivery in the last year. They don't want people to just like sign up all of a sudden out there for e-bikes. You have to have a uncertified e-bike or a moped, like those seated scooters we often see, or it's even open to gasoline motorbikes that do not have VINs, so they're not registerable, which is also a large component of the delivery fleet. And you have to be 18 or older. So if you fit all of that, you can bring in your, or first you have to apply. There's an application process, but then if you're selected, you get to bring in your uncertified electric bike or moped and any spare batteries you have, and you will be given a free UL certified e-bike along with a second spare UL certified battery. So, I mean, personally, I just think this is a really cool program because this is like the whole idea of why we collect taxes, like to help our communities become better, right? Like the whole point is that we collect taxes to spend on making our places better to live in. And that's exactly what this does. Food delivery and, parcel delivery, these are critical jobs, especially in New York City where it's hard to get around. And so it makes sense that these guys are using electric bikes, but it's a pretty tough environment. These bikes get, beaten up, damaged a lot, hit by cars while they're parked. So I understand that a lot of these delivery riders, they're not buying the nicest bikes. They're trying to find something low cost that is not a big deal if it gets, smacked around a bit. And so to be able to replace a lot of these low quality, potentially shoddy e-bikes out there with higher quality, certified, safer alternatives, I mean, this just seems like a no-brainer to me. I mean, you got to support this too, right, Seth?
For sure. I'm wondering though, what bikes are they getting? Like, do we know like the make and model of?
Yeah, it doesn't say. There are some pictures of this brand called Fly in a lot of the NYC DOT marketing about like, buy the UL certified bike. And Fly is a New York City based electric bike importer. We actually met at Micromobility America, one of the guys in charge of it. And so they've got, a bunch of different locations in New York City. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're working with Fly. And Fly's gone through the process to do whatever it is, jump through the UL hoops. So that wouldn't surprise me, but they haven't actually announced which bikes they are. They haven't even said exactly how many bikes will be available in the program.
Mm-hmm.
They described the number as quote unquote limited. So, there is a number. But the cool thing is that if they, run out of bikes that reach that number of applications, it's not going to be a first come, first serve basis. It's going to be a lottery system. So it's not like whoever was fastest to
Right.
submit the application, which is open now, by the way. So if if you are a delivery person in New York City, the application is open until I think March 10th, if I'm not mistaken. Double check that, but you've got, a little bit of time left to go submit that application.
And it's not just like what make, but like, do you think the bikes are going to be comparable? Because I mean, I have to say those e-bikes that the delivery drivers drive, they're quite they're quite speedy, and those batteries are like, they're huge. So I just wonder if these people, because it is a trade-in program, right? Like you have to give up your
Right.
bike. So I just
Definitely.
wonder if these delivery drivers are going to be like, oh, I'm going to give up my 35 mile per hour, whatever bike for a class 2, 20 mile per
Yeah.
hour. So, I mean, I love the idea. I just don't know how well in practice this is going to go. And I would love to see, so we should check back and see how this is doing. Obviously people don't want their bikes to catch on fire. Being UL listed is going to drastically reduce the number of battery fires. So I'm all for that. But as always, the glass half empty guy in me is like, I don't know if these guys are going to trade in their bikes for this thing. But we'll see. Like it's their heart is in the right place, I think, is what my takeaway will be on
Absolutely.
that. All right.
Absolutely. Yeah. And they are offering a spare battery with it. So you do get, it's not like you're just getting a little 10 amp hour battery. It comes with a second battery.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. And this is probably why most people are here. Adult side OnlyFans helped its high-tech handlebar come to market.
So this is, I think, the only time I've ever had to clear my browser history after researching an Electrek article. This is first of all completely legit. This is not like, a tongue-in-cheek article. I mean, I did, shoehorn in a whole bunch of jokes, but this is completely serious. So there's this new handlebar designed for road bikes, whether electric or pedal. I think it works, just as well with pedal bikes, called the Flight Deck. It was developed by two entrepreneurs, one of whom had a very unique idea for how to fund this new piece of tech. Instead of going the traditional route, which we've seen over and over again, which is to do a Kickstarter, pre-sell these things a year or two in advance, raise a bunch of money, and then develop it. What this enterprising young entrepreneur decided to do was first open herself a Instagram account where she developed a huge following for somewhat racy photos of herself among cycling stuff. So she'd be like, maybe don't click through to the that was
Yeah, I
like
was going
the,
to say that was an
that was the
accident.
safest for work photo I could find.
Okay.
And so there's all these pictures. She built up, hundreds of thousands of followers from the meaty part of the Venn diagram that overlaps between people who like cycling and people who like women. Um, and then she took all of that following that she got while she was developing these handlebars and then started an OnlyFans site, which I'm told is an adult site where content creators can share intimate stuff, content, as it were. Again, apparently it is largely cycling based because she has a large cycling uh, following. I don't know what the proper terminology is here. But basically, she was able to raise a whole bunch of money from OnlyFans to fund the continued development of her cycling technology, largely this Flight Deck handlebar set here, which is basically the highest tech handlebars I've ever seen. It's got like a 7-inch OLED screen. It's designed to connect with basically every cycling computer or cycling sensor out there, at least all of the major ones that most hardcore cyclists are going to use. It's got built-in GPS for maps. It's basically like the center console in your car, but brought into the biking world.
Yeah,
And
I
I
mean,
think that was their
it looks
goal.
really impressive for those listening. It's just, it's got the maps, it's got your speed, it's got like your so maps on the left, kind of speed and specs there, and then what is that music on the right that we're looking at?
It looks like it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you got your body specs, you got your speed specs, you got the mapping, you got your media if you're listening to media. It's a great idea. Like, I mean, I think this is the way everything's going to end up. And frankly, like, I hate to say this, but like you could probably do an iPhone app and just slap that thing on your, but like this is also very cool. And for high end things, it makes a lot of sense. I do have to say, like, the shifting of like, hey, look at my body on a whatever, to hey, I'm making this very useful product, was interesting. Like, I don't know how I feel about it, because it's like, obviously it's I don't want to say the bait and switch, but it's a, like, you came here for this, but check out that, that kind of thing.
I mean,
I
she
do.
definitely delivered. So it wasn't a switch. Like, if you paid, you got what you paid for.
Right. No. Yeah.
At
Well,
least not on the handlebars yet, I should say. For
yeah.
the
And
for the
then
other
there's the
content,
whole, like, the handlebars sounds a little bit racy as well. Like, what are we talking about handlebars here? So there's all kinds of, like, innuendo
yeah,
happening.
the
But, like,
headlights are up
as
here.
as a family friendly podcast, we're going to focus on the technology, and it does seem like a cool interface that's been built here. And is this kind of like a projection of a phone, or is this like it's got its own computer, it's running Android, something like that?
So that's the thing, is you're not supposed to need like a phone. It's not like it's pairing with your phone, that sort of thing. I think it's all running natively, which is supposed to be the big selling point here, right? Like, it's part of
Yeah.
the vehicle at this point. It's not like, you get into your car and then like your phone is mirrored up on the dash. Like, it's running its own operating system. That's sort of the idea.
Right. So it's probably running some sort of Android OS, probably phone OS. It's got Google Maps on the left. It's got some app in the middle.
All
I'm
right. And
assuming
I should
here.
point Yeah, and I should point out that like she designed this. I mean, she's got a business partner as well that I think they're both engineers and they worked on this. But she worked at BMW, at Porsche. Like, she's got automotive design experience. So like, there's that interesting angle to the story, which is how this came to be. But like, she deserves credit for having designed and built what is a very cool piece of cycling tech that we've never seen before. At the same
Yeah, and
time,
you would have to
I should probably
imagine
mention
that.
the price.
Oh
Sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah, go ahead. Well, I was
So
just going to say that you would have to imagine that this is going to be something that would be, like a company like Bosch would be like, oh yeah, our little Vioxx like thing could be so much better with all this stuff. Let's buy this company or bring this in house. But go ahead.
yeah, so I mean, it sounds great. Like, if you list all the features, super high tech, nice carbon bars, etc. But when you get to the price, this thing starts at $1,600, and that's the like early bird price. The MSRP is like 2,000 or higher.
Wow.
And we should point out that these aren't actually delivered yet, right? Like, you're still pre-ordering ahead of production on these things. So you're very much, taking a bit of a risk here. It's not a Kickstarter, but it's, still the same sort of concept of pre-ordering here, and perhaps helping to get the first batch produced. Now, it does seem like there was significant funding raised using the innovative method, and so we'd like to think that all the tooling has been designed, that like all the production has been worked out, and they're just taking pre-orders to figure out production volume. But you're taking a little bit of a risk here. This is not a cheap product, and it's not something that you can just walk into a bike store and already buy.
Yeah. Also, there's the fan edition, which is kind of, I don't know, a live call with Sabrina and a fan calendar. That's,
You
I
think
don't know.
you think that's bad? There's the like peak prize or reward or whatever here is
Uh-huh.
a private cycling trip, like a multi-day cycling trip with Sabrina, the creator. So
Okay.
like it gets real interesting. It's like flights and
Yeah,
hotel included.
uh, it's a little
Yeah,
gross. All right. Well, I mean, I'm not going to judge, like, whatever. Uh, I'm
cool
glad
tech.
people are working on cool tech. That's my big takeaway here. All right, let's move on. Rising star Vanmo rides past 1 million battery swaps for electric motorcycles.
This one's exciting because it's always cool to see, first of all, technology being embraced in new areas, and second of all, sort of cool twists on that tech. So these are swappable battery electric motorcycles from a company called Vammo or Vammo. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. They're based in Sao Paulo, Brazil. But the cool thing here about this battery swapping is the technology is not actually that new. Like these are Super Soco bikes. The batteries are the existing batteries. But what Vamo does is that they offer this battery as a service, the same idea as Gogoro, right? Where like you're basically a distributed energy company in a way, except that they don't have to, build and maintain a battery standard. They're sort of, as a company, built to work with existing batteries and existing bikes. So they started last year in Brazil, and their goal is to expand to all of South America, but they've started in Brazil, or I guess all of Latin America, and they've just surpassed 1 million battery swaps, which is a huge amount of battery swaps. This is not like a little mom and pop operation anymore. It's, they are a startup, but they're making huge progress, which is really exciting to see. And Brazil itself is a really awesome opportunity because Brazil is something like, I want to say 90% renewable electricity. Like their renewable figure is super super high. So you're talking about an electrical grid that's charging these swappable batteries that's almost entirely based on solar and wind and a few other green sources of electricity here. So it's really exciting to see not just that, battery swapping is taking off in multiple areas, but in this case, it's being done in a way that I think is probably going to be more sustainable and perhaps more successful because it doesn't rely on trying to get a bunch of companies to adopt your standard. It's built on the idea of being somewhat adaptable to existing standards. In this case, I think that they've still come in and they're sort of like convincing people to buy these bikes and to be able to be a part of this system. It's not like there were just like a whole bunch of these electric motorcycles already roaming the streets and they were like, hey, you want to put your batteries in our cabinets? So there's still some adoption. There's still some like electric motorcycle evangelism that needs to happen here for this to be a success, but it seems like they're doing a really good job with it. They've got I think they're the number one spot for electric motorcycles in Brazil in terms of registrations, so they're obviously convincing a lot of people to switch over from their gas powered motorcycles to electric. And it seems like the battery swapping is really taking off with 1 million swaps in a year. So to me, that's very exciting.
Yeah. So, I mean, what market? Like this is obviously the same as Gogoro, but in Brazil or whatever. Um, what like are they different formats than Gogoro? Is there a chance that they'll come together on something? What's the
Yeah,
idea?
so this is they're using, I believe, the existing battery that these V-Moto or Super Soco bikes already use. So they didn't have to develop a new battery, right? It's not
Mhm.
like they had to make a battery standard or anything like that. And so that was one way that they were able to very quickly get into the market. They did have to have their own battery cabinets made. They designed them to fit this battery,
Right.
but that was basically the extent of sort of the customization, I believe. I think they've got their tech stack on the back end. I'm sure there's some sort of native app and that sort of thing. They do offer this as a service, so you're signing up and you're paying some nominal fee. I'm not sure if it's per swap or like a just a monthly subscription. You can swap as much as you want, but there is the tech side on the backside, but in the hardware, they're able to come into this fairly easily, I think, compared to Gogoro without needing all that overhead of
Right.
producing their own batteries and convincing other companies to sign on the way the Gogoros had to do. Which, to their credit, they've got, I don't know, 7, 8, 10 different scooter companies that build with Gogoro batteries now. So Gogoro's done a good job there, but it's that probably took a lot of legwork, and
Right.
still, even if you get to a dozen manufacturers, I mean, there are hundreds of scooter
Right.
manufacturers around the world. Like, you still got a long way to go before it becomes a real widely accepted standard, unlike just going with an existing battery pack.
Yeah. So this pack looks like, I see 60 volts, 45 amps. That's like 2.5 kilowatt hours. That's going to be pretty heavy, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's your big boy right there. I mean, he's two-handing it, that's for sure.
Right. And I mean, that's not going to be something that a more petite person is going to be able to get in and out, I don't think, right?
I guess it depends on the person. I mean, so
Right.
those bikes probably have two of those batteries.
Okay.
That is on the bigger side of a removable battery. That's for sure.
Right.
Like, my GoGo batteries are, I think 1.5 or 1.7 kilowatt hours. So
Okay.
maybe 60 to 70% of the size, and they weigh, I want to say, like 22 pounds. So
Oh, that's
it's
not bad.
probably at least a 32 pound battery that we're looking at in the picture there, I'm guessing.
Okay.
That's
That's
chunky,
not
but
insane.
yeah, exactly. And you're not carrying it very far. You're
Right.
parking literally next to the cabinet.
Right. Right. Oh, that's not bad. Obviously we're hoping for more standardization across the world. Maybe this is like a step, maybe not in the right direction, but a step in some direction. And, as we kind of like, maybe this will get more Brazilian um, manufacturers on board, and they can kind of uh, get closer to a standard. That would be good.
And
I'm just
Vmoto is actually a Chinese bike, so this would
okay.
work all over. If they've built around the Vmoto batteries for now, though I think their goal is to be somewhat agile with being able to fit, more than one. I think they were working with new at one point as
Oh,
well.
really?
Yeah, so I think their goal is, depending on the market, they can have different bikes, but they really seem, having spoken with the team, they really seem like they want to be a broader Latin American solution. That, like, Brazil is just the start.
And I forget, does Gogoro have like a cable and plug system, or when you put in a Gogoro battery, it just kind of plugs in when you push it in, right?
Yeah, it's just like an electric kettle sort of
Right.
port. I mean, it even looks like it comes from a kettle.
Yeah, this one looks a little bit more bespoke, I would say.
Yeah, a lot of them. Also, my new batteries are like that as well, where you got to unplug the wire.
Right. I mean, I guess that's one of the advantages of Gogoro is that they've been doing this for a while. They've figured out like some of the
Yeah.
pain points.
Well, the founder, Horace Luke, I mean, he was like a designer by trade, so he designed the heck out of those things.
Yeah. All right, let's move to something near and dear to my heart. A couple weeks ago, I was flown down to Puerto Rico, and the title of the article is Lift's new Lift5 and LiftX electric foil surfboards make gliding over water easier than ever. Mike, I know you've done some electric surfboarding. Have you've done foils, right, or no?
I mean, I've done it a couple of times, though I'm not sure if you would call it foiling. Like, I'd get up for a few seconds and then I would fall off of the foil.
I know the feeling.
Yeah.
If you guys are watching at home, the beginning of my video is about me just falling right on my face a couple times. But I did eventually get up, and I was actually foiling for quite a bit of time out on the open ocean and in a river. So it was a great experience. So Lyft is a Puerto Rican based company. They I don't want to say they pioneered, but they were very early in the foiling world with the push foils and the kite foils, and and all this other stuff. They come from a background of surfboard shaping, and the founder, Nick, is a competitive foiler himself. So this is a very interesting sport kind of driven thing, and it kind of reminded me of the snowboard company. I'm obviously, well, not obviously, but I'm a big snowboard fan. So one of the companies, Burton, that's based here in Vermont, kind of started up the whole sport. Basically, they had events. They lobbied companies to, or lobbied ski resorts to get into the snowboards onto the mountain. So Lift is also doing something similar. They're going out to surf events with their boards and getting pro surfers to try out their foils. So it's a pretty interesting company, especially the Puerto Rican component. There's a lot of extra hurdles you have to go through as a Puerto Rican company. For instance, most stuff that comes through China has to go through the contiguous U.S. before it comes to Puerto Rico. So a lot of the Chinese foil and the motors have to come through. It's a little bit of a process before they're manufactured. And then I think they have to go out the same way. So it's a little bit of a job, but you can tell the company is a very Puerto Rican culture. The workers there are very island focused, and it just seems like a very, very cool company. So just a quick, like, you've been through this, like you get on the foil, you start riding, and you're like, oh, this is weird. This is a new thing that I'm not quite used to. And I mean, you tell me, Micah, like, were you kind of like, how does this work? What?
Yeah.
How was it
So,
for you?
I mean, I'm guessing when it was down on the water for you, it felt sort of like a snowboard, right? Like he's kind of carved, or like a skateboard, right?
Yep.
So that's the way it felt for me. Like, I mean, I've never snowboarded, but like, while it's down on the water, I feel like I'm riding an electric skateboard, right? It's just an electric
Yep.
surfboard. The thing is, as soon as it comes up, like you're not carving anymore. You're like, the axis of rotation is like 2 feet below you. And that just messes with my mind in terms of how I turn the thing. And then I get the
That's
wobbles and I
exactly right.
fall off.
Yeah. Yeah. So I had similar issues. And then you add the front and back. So if you feel yourself start coming up out of the water, you kind of have to lean forward a little bit. And then the opposite, obviously, if you're like heading down into the water, like once you're on the foil and you feel yourself kind of going down, you have to lean back. So there's like a dual access thing. And you'll notice on here, you're not riding like, or is it, you're kind of diagonal on the board because you have two axes to kind of deal with. On a snowboard, you don't really have that front back axis. Like the mountain's not going anywhere. And I think that's true with surfing too. But that extra axis definitely makes it problematic. You can see it on the video that I'm like going up way too much there. And this is all part of the learning process. I did eventually get up. You can see a little bit there, but I did get up and kind of riding around, and actually turning wasn't impossible. It would just be like 1 out of 3 times I would make the turn, like the 180-degree turn without like going head over. And I guess that's the other nice thing is that, you land in water and that's usually not too problematic versus learning how to snowboard where you fall on ice and it's a little bit more painful. So it's a great experience. And, with 2 hours of training, I was already getting up. So I think that this is like one of those things that, could be a pretty interesting sport. So two other like areas that are interesting. They have this thing called the blowfish, which is basically a raft that goes around it. And it turns it into kind of like a different type of vessel. Like you can use it for fishing, you can have 2 people on it, and you can kind of just do the same, like controlling it. I mean, I think some people even use it like on their boats as like a dinghy. There's a lot of like cool options for it, and you don't have to get up on the foil. You can just, like, you can see me here, just using it like a boat, and it's actually a little bit more stable than a boat because you have that thing going underwater, and the left right stuff is a little bit harder to tip over. But so you can use it like that, and then but when you get up on the foil, you don't have any of the drag of the inflatable there. So you're getting 95% of the efficiency of the foil, even with the blowfish around it. So those are pretty cool, and you can see in the video, one of my colleagues there is foiling with the blowfish on it. So that's cool. And then like what's kind of nice about these things is like you can put a couple people on it. Like you can actually use it like a little boat. You can do some fishing, you can do diving from it. You can, if you don't fall over into the water, you can actually use it for like little dinghy type applications. But what's cool is like once you're foiling, you're using very little energy. You can go really far. I think 30 miles is what they said, from a foiling standpoint. And you can go 30 miles per hour, which is jet ski speed. So, this little thing that you can put in the trunk of your car when it's, folded down can act like a jet ski or a boat. And it's, really a versatile application of something. You want that speed, you want that 30 mile per hour speed. Now, obviously there's a pretty good chance you're going to go in the water if you're not a pro, but once you're used to it, like you can get going pretty fast on this. It's equivalent to like a jet ski, and yet it fits in a car. You don't need a dock. You just walk into the water with it, and as long as you've got a couple of feet of water, you can get this thing going. So I do see it as a a transportation alternative and a jet ski replacement. So for that, I think it's a good transportation option, and I can justify it. It's not just for fun.
All right, but tell me numbers. How much cash are we talking about here?
All right, so they haven't released the cost. So numbers in terms of battery size. It's a 2.2 kilowatt hour battery. It can go for an hour. I think the motor is like a kilowatt, or maybe it's 2 kilowatts. That would make sense. 2.2 kilowatts goes for an hour. So pricing wasn't released. The one before this, so this is the Lift5. The Lift4 goes for $13,000, which is great. I mean, it's a lot of money, right? It's jet ski prices, if not more. But these are, very, very high end. I'm sure there's a Chinese company that's selling something that's, 80% as good as this for half or less, a third the cost. I think, kitted out with the blowfish and everything else, I think you're looking at $15,000 for the whole package. And clearly that's quite expensive. That's not something that, everybody's going to be able to fit into their budget. But for me, it's like it replaces a surfboard and a jet ski and a dinghy for a boat and, a little fishing kayak, and does all these things that are pretty sweet. And it's also like super fast and it's a lot of fun. So if you're into all that stuff and you have, needs in some of these areas, it makes sense financially, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like if you've got jet ski money, then you also have electric hydrofoil board money.
Right. Yeah. Let me see if I can, like, that looks fun, right?
Yeah. When the pros do it, they make it look so easy.
I know.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's just an hours on the board thing, right? Like it's just training your mind to
exactly.
know how to lean. It's just a time thing.
Yeah, I mean, I actually they were very good hosts down there in Puerto Rico. They, they flew us down, they fed us really like local food. It was really, really like a great experience. But I really wish I would have had a little bit more time on these things because I was just as we were going, I was getting it. And our instructor was basically just he was just standing on it and just, he could have got work done while he was going. He was just so
bring his laptop.
Yeah, I mean, it was just there was no chance of him getting wet, He just like, it wasn't even close. So like, I know when you get some hours in, it's going to get a lot easier, but you know, we only had like 2 hours on the water, but that's a good sign. The fact that, you know, I wanted to play more and more and more. There's there was like a one more thing, and it's this LiftX, and what's special about the LiftX is that the propeller on it, let's see if you can see it here, kind of just folds down when you're not using it, and it turns into like a gravity, or, you know, you're either pumping it or you're using waves or whatever. So you get that feeling of, you know, you're just surfing. So that's what happens there if you're watching at home.
Nice.
So you have that little propeller helping you out, and then turn it off and it disappears, and then you're riding waves. So that to me would be like a super cool, you know, application of the technology.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, that battery doesn't look too big either. Most of the ones I've seen, they're like huge batteries. That one looks pretty manageable.
Yeah, it's not bad. The whole package, like pulling it in and out of the water, is very doable. I mean, it's a little bulky because it's a, you know, a bigger board, and you have to put it together on the sand. Obviously, you're not putting it together in the water. But that's also kind of like a game changer, is like how easy it is to just snap on the parts. So you basically have a board, a mast, and a you know, a foil, and the mast has the motor in it. And you know, you get to near the water, and you just click in the mast, and then you click in the foil, and it's literally like a 1 minute operation. And, you know, the batteries also click in. So it's, I think part of the big innovation there is making it so easy to, you know, take this thing from the back of your trunk to the water and get in the water in a few minutes is kind of revolutionary.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it obviously, you need some money to do this. This is not like a poor man's sport,
For
but
sure.
if you've got boat money, this is a fun way to spend it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it looks so cool. Like you can tell from the sport is going to be, you know, it continues to grow. And as more people
Yeah.
get into it and numbers start going up, the prices will start coming down. So it has that, you know, early snowboarding kind of vibe to it. So we like to see that stuff, and that's fun stuff to cover. And it was a fun trip for me. Obviously, I'm in Vermont, so having some warm weather was nice.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. This sold out street legal electric motorcycle is also an electric snowmobile. Speaking of cold.
This one's a bit different. So this is mostly an electric motorcycle, not terribly fast or powerful. I think it goes like 37 miles an hour, 60 kilometers per hour. So, it's more like a scooter in a motorcycle shape. But its big claim to fame is a bolt on replacement for the rear wheel, which is a snowmobile setup, and then a skid for the front wheel. It's from a company called Avenir, which, if you're familiar with the Canadian company Daymac, they did a whole bunch of like, kind of Chinese looking cheap electric scooters and motorcycles and e-bikes and stuff. Avenir was spun out of Daymac maybe 3 years ago, something like that, to make much higher end stuff. They've got a three-wheeled electric car, which they've actually shown off multiple prototypes for it that look, like varying stages of completion. Um, Certainly further than Saunders ever got with its three-wheeled electric car.
Oh
They've
yeah.
got some wilder things, like they say they're working on a flying car, etc. But this is one of their more realistic products because it's smaller and cheaper to make. It's called the Combat, which not sure it tracks with anything else that it does. It's not a particularly tactical looking or aggressive motorcycle. And as a snowmobile, it's also kind of small and probably not, terribly high performance compared to a real snowmobile. But it does seem to sort of offer the ability to do both, which, if you're a motorcycle owner, you know that, if you live in a cold environment, you're probably putting your bike away for most of the cold months, unless you fancy, riding around on ice. And if you've got a snowmobile, same thing. You're not going to be doing a whole lot of, snowmobiling in the summer. So if you can have one vehicle and just swap the wheels for, skids and tracks, then it's a really cool concept. Now, that being said, I'm a little bit worried about the legitimacy of this particular model. And there's like some, if not red flags, then kind of scarlety flags that pop up here. Now, Avenir, it is kind of like a real company, but they've been
Kinda.
around for several years. But this specific bike, first of all, they refer to it as sold out. They said they've already sold out of the Founders Edition, so now they're taking pre-orders for the next production batch. The problem is I cannot find any mention of it on the internet before the press release for this bike came out announcing how sold out it is. So maybe they sold out without ever advertising or announcing it. Maybe there were two bikes and they sold them both to friends. I don't know what the situation is, but it seems suspicious to have an unannounced bike that is somehow already sold out. Next, they're claiming delivery later this month for the pre-orders that they're selling now, which is great. We love to see quick delivery times. These like pay now, get it next year things are suspicious. But that quick of a delivery, especially when apparently there are already sold out Founders editions that we haven't seen any of, it just like it doesn't quite add up. And lastly, you can see just from the pictures we're looking at here, these bikes look like various stages of prototypes. And anytime you see flat panels on a product, it's like because someone made it in their like workshop kind of thing. Like these very much look like they were sort of put together by, someone with some manufacturing skills, but that these are not production ready or even like production intent vehicles. It looks very much early stage. So I love the concept, but I'm not recommending anybody go and put down money for a pre-order for one of these things because there seem to be several, somewhat questionable aspects to it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I see two different like rear ends on these the snowmobile version, actually front ends as well. That's a red flag. Like, put out one. I mean, this is two entirely different vehicles. I don't know if like one was like the concept and one is like reality. But like I do get the red flags on this one. And it's unfortunate because it doesn't seem like it's rocket science. Like there are certainly even bikes. There was that Moon electric bike or electric snowboard.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's definitely products in this category. It's definitely a possibility. It's just obviously this company is like, oh crap, winter's almost over. Let's try to sell some of these things. Let's try to get some money really quick. Like if these things do exist, like let's see them. Where are the Founders editions? Where's all the reality here? We do have a picture of a guy zooming through the snow. The other thing is, and this was something with the Moon bikes. They and actually I reviewed a electric snowboard last year that looks super cool, but like in reality, like the use case was very small. And I don't think these things, they're not going to replace a snowmobile necessarily, right away. And this, there's all kinds of things you're not thinking about, like the slippage and the weight and all the other stuff. So I agree with you. Maybe take a wait and see on this one. But I love the idea that they're pushing forward with this. And as a Canadian company, I'm sure they're like, well, it's winter. We got to sell some stuff. Let's do this and this.
Yeah, if these are here next winter, then I'll be super interested. Let's give it 12 months.
Yeah, and I'm up here in the snow. If there's something you want me to try out, let me know. I'm not too far from Canada either, so give us a call. All right, last story. You went back to China to tour more e-bike factories and visit companies, and here's what you saw.
Yeah, so this is a bit of a preview. I was at like 6 or 7 different companies this time. This is sort of a sequel to a similar trip I took last April, I think. Um, and so here's a little preview of each of the stops, but I'm going to have dedicated articles and videos on each of these. In fact, I actually just finished editing the Bafong video like a couple hours ago. So that one's going to be coming up hopefully next week. It'll be posted. But I'll just give you guys kind of a preview of what we're going to see. So my first stop was the Bafong factory in Suzhou. I was actually there 5 years ago, and it was really interesting to go back and see what has changed in manufacturing of all of these e-bike components in 5 years. Between an entirely new facility, they moved to a whole lot more of automation, and even an entire battery factory. Now they build batteries as well as all of the motors and controllers and the other things that we think of as coming from Bafong. I also was reminded that it's Bafong and not Bafang, as I've been saying for like at least 10 years.
Yeah, I know. Every time I go to a trade show and I meet one and everybody says Bafong, and I'm always like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if I'll ever really be able to switch, but I'm trying, at least
Right.
like I owe it to them to say their name correctly, at least I feel like.
Well, we should just have them change it because that would be easier.
There you go. That's the
Yeah.
American way.
Yep. And start using imperial, like we want speed in miles per hour, please.
Yeah. Instead of being Bafong e-bike parts, can you be Jeff e-bike parts, please?
Right.
Let's see. So the next I was at News Factory, NIU. They're an electric scooter company. Though they make electric motorcycles,
It looks like they
standing
make a
electric
lot of them.
scooters. Yeah, they make a pile of them. Like their warehouse of recently finished scooters was huge. That's just a part of it. Um, I brought my little like pocket drone, and I'm glad I did because I like flew it through their warehouse to get that shot, which was pretty cool.
Wait, what
But it was
pocket drone are you using these days?
actually I have one. Wait, what product placement this would be? It's sitting on my desk here. It's the Hover Air.
Oh,
It's
nice.
this
Okay.
thing.
Yep. I know that one.
Yeah, it's so nice. Love this thing. Um, I got a little hard drive case for it, which is like the perfect thing for traveling. Anyway, so that's not what we're here for. We're here for scooters and bikes. But yeah, so News Factory, it was cool because not only did I get to see their production, which was fascinating, but I got to test ride like, I don't know, 6 or 8 different vehicles, which I own one new scooter, the NQI GT, but being able to test so many at once was a really cool way to compare these things. New is they're a huge manufacturer in China. They're one of the top sort of like higher end, not luxury, but definitely like high tech scooter companies. But you'll also find them all over Europe. They've got a decent presence in the US. In the US, they're probably better known for their standing scooters, but it's just really cool to see all of that production there sort of under one roof and to test out so many different vehicles. So that's going to be a really fun one to share, both from the manufacturing side and the chance to do all those test rides. Let's see, where was I? Next, I visited also Unorao. They're an electric bike company that they've got a huge just breadth of different models, but they also have this new service, which is really cool, called BKRE, where because they've got such good connections all over China, they're supplying parts for recently closed or bankrupt bike companies. So, for example, let's say you have a juiced bike, right? And like you need a controller, or you need like that display. Well, they've got their own controller, their own display. You can't just like go on AliExpress and find one. But BKRE, they've got relationships with like every bike factory in China. So if they don't already have the parts in stock, which I saw they've got just like rows and rows of shelves of other bike companies' parts that have gone out of business. If they don't have it in stock, they can probably get it within a few days. And then they've got just like a very small markup and they'll mail it out to you wherever in the world. So it's a really cool service that they offer to be able to keep people who have other companies' bankrupt bikes alive and running and operating for years to come. So that was a really cool thing to see. Let's see, where else was I? Yadi.
Yeah.
I went to their retail show, which was just insanely huge. They had something like 4,000 dealers there.
Wow.
mostly from across China, but it was international. So there were people from all over the world. I was able to record an interview with a dealer from Mexico. I got to practice my horribly broken Spanish. But it was really cool to be able to see dealers from all over the world and all of Yachty's products. Not all of them, but like probably over 100 different products there on display, which is like such a diverse, from like three wheelers to these cute like European scooters to electric dirt bikes, standing scooters, everything, just crazy. I also
Yeah,
visited.
I
Sorry, go
really
ahead.
think the US market, like, I just don't understand why like a cute scooter like this isn't just destroying the US market like right now. Like, I don't know, charge like $2,000, set up shops in like all the beach communities, like all over. They would just I mean, they would just do so well. Like, there's so many people who would love to have some of these, and they don't need to go 50 miles per hour. They can go 20 miles per hour and be, put vestigial pedals on them like some companies do or whatever. But it's just, to me, it's like really a big missed opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is. I don't know. For years now, I've thought like, yeah, the U.S. is just a few years away from, like accepting a wave of scooters. I'm starting to feel, after having made that prediction every couple of years for like a decade, I'm starting to wonder if it's ever going to happen.
What is this thing called? Retro.com? Or sorry.
I don't know what you're looking at.
There's like in the Retro Club. Oh, okay. That's the name of the
Uh,
bike there.
yeah. Sometimes there's just like weird, um, like English words thrown on some of these products that don't really make any
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Also, you can see the blink. I don't know if those are blinkers or just like running lights. Look like a Mini Cooper with the British flag on either side. Like, they just
Nice.
take weird cultural things from different places in the world, and it gives that
Yeah,
international
it's
feel.
almost like AI is designing these things.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. Let's
Yeah,
see. Yeah, DeepSeek.
right.
So let's see. So I went to Dahone, which is probably one of the most famous electric, or not just electric, folding bike makers. Them and Brompton are like the two leading folding bike makers in the world. They didn't invent the folding bike, but they were basically there when it became a popular commercializable form in something like the early 80s, I want to say. So I tried out a number of their different models, including that like tiny featherlight one that's in the trunk of the giant folding electric tricycle there. So from tiny to massive. I got to see their showroom. I didn't actually get the chance to go to their factory, which would have been another cool opportunity. But to see all their different models and test them out was definitely an experience that like I just couldn't have gotten anywhere else. And in addition, I got to um, sit down and interview Dr. Han, who founded the company. And so it was really interesting to be able to hear his perspective and why he got into this like 4 or 5 decades ago and started designing folding bikes. So that was a really neat experience. He actually invited me to his home. I didn't realize I was going to be like just hanging out with him in his living room. And so I'm really glad I wore matching socks that day because you take off your shoes in Asian homes. So it was kind of a fun surprise to be able to go see his home and interview him there. So that was a pretty neat experience.
Yeah, it's
Let's
cool. And
see.
then Zemin,
Yeah, so
Zenmin,
I think this is the last one. I think it's Jin Min, if I remember how to pronounce this correctly, but probably I don't. So
right?
take that with a grain of salt. This is a golf cart factory, so I got to see how they build these things. This was interesting because it was kind of the opposite of the high tech scooter and moped factories, where it was a lot lower tech. A lot more manual labor. People just like welding things up on tables, that sort of thing. But they make really interesting um, golf carts, low speed vehicles, neighborhood electric vehicles, from the massive to the tiny, which you can see examples of both here. What looks like a glorified mobility scooter and a like lifted super golf cart, which, as you can imagine, that one is destined for the US market. Which that one actually, so I had to cover the logo on it, but it's a US company that sells electric bicycles. So it looks like they're going to be adding golf carts to their lineup, which I never would have guessed. At some
Really?
point when they actually, yeah, when they do, I'll be able to be like, that's the one. I
You'll
rode
have to
that
tell
thing
me off
in
camera which
China.
company that is, because that's interesting.
Yeah. But I wouldn't have saw that one coming. So this was just a cool experience to see something a little bit different. We rarely get to go in depth with golf carts and neighborhood electric vehicles, but to see them produced and to see like where it all starts and go through the process was a fun experience. So I'm looking forward to sharing that one. And also, I just think the shots from inside the factory and all the video I got in there is going to be kind of eye opening because it's very different than the high tech like e-bike and electric motor like the motorbike and scooter companies we've seen.
Yeah.
And then the last one there's the Hey Bike Alpha. So that one it was actually announced at CES. So I already ran this story and this video right when it was announced at CES. But this is Hey Bike's new mid-drive sort of adventure style bike of the Rad Rover and Aventon Aventon type models. It's their first mid-drive. It is super torquey. Like I kept riding it upstairs and ramps and stuff just because it was so much fun to like watch it climb, even from like a dead stop. It uses a Mevice motor, which is a really nice, a bit smaller factory in China, but they make really, really high quality precision motors. And this is just an interesting one to see Hey Bike bring to market because they've always been known for sort of their, very budget friendly, not necessarily super high tech bikes, but this pushes them into a much nicer, level of tools here. We're talking about something that's, very powerful, very torquey, and much nicer than we've seen from them. And also at a reasonable price point. They just announced pre-orders. I think it's $1,700, which for a mid-drive, powerful adventure bike is really quite good. So this was another cool one to cover, and that's already up there. So if you just search like Electrek Hey Bike Alpha, you'll find that video where we're watching here and that post.
So I wanted to do this last time, but since we're talking about Hey Bike, I wanted to show everybody my snow bike. So I'm out here in Vermont, and this is the bike that I use every day to walk the dog. It's a Hey Bike Tyson.
The Tyson? Yeah.
Yeah, the Tyson. And you can see, obviously, I've got some charging cables and everything like that. But basically, every day I take that bike out in the snow, and it's been like that for like 2 years now. So really impressed by Hey Bike's, the quality there. And I'm kind of actually surprised the battery's been, it's just sitting out in like 0-degree weather all day. Like it's not inside, it's not under anything. Like it gets snowed on. So props to Hey Bike for that one.
Are you charging it at below freezing?
Yeah. I'm doing all the things you're not supposed to do.
This is like you're purposely trying to destroy this bike to see how long it will last.
Yeah. I basically like I kind of wrote it off. Like I was like, all right, so I got this bike. I'm just gonna like I can't bring it in. I can't bring the battery in. I mean, I could. It's just kind of a schlep. So like
those 3 steps are brutal.
Well, you gotta unfold the bike and pull the battery out. Like it's not nothing, especially when it's so cold outside. So anyway, I was like, you know what? Let's just see what happens. Let's do some winter testing with this thing. And like the battery certainly, like when I start the battery now, it kind of goes from like 80% to 30%, and like it bounces all over the place. But like it does what it's supposed to do. It gets me around, and then I just plug it back in when I'm done outside in the cold, like negative, degrees Fahrenheit. Like again, all the stuff you're not supposed to do. So props to Hey Bike, props to like whoever, I mean the actual like the stuff that's breaking on that now is like the lights, the chain is, kind of rusty because of the salt and all the other stuff. Actually, there's no salt up here, but it's just, sitting outside all day, like all year. So it's like I would love to send this thing back to Hey Bike and say, like, you guys did an amazing job. Here's what went wrong. Not that you like, whatever. I'm really happy with the bike overall.
Man, that deserves like a 2 years later. This is what happens when I tried to destroy this e-bike article.
Yeah, I might do something like that, and then maybe they can send me the new mid drive, so I can destroy that too. All right,
It
we
also
have some
reminds me of
comments.
those
Yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
The like those commercials where it's like if you're cold, your pets are cold, bring them in. Like if you're
Right,
cold, your bike is cold.
your bike is frozen. All right, Carl and San Diego agree that New York City is doing a good thing helping gig workers, but the real problem is that we have people riding for the gig economy. It should be restaurant or messenger company providing e-bikes, paying wage. Yeah, I mean, like there's an argument to say like, well, we should be enforcing like having, good bikes, and the company that's, sending the gig workers out should be facilitating nice bikes for everybody. There's certainly that argument, but I think somebody's maybe throwing some reality onto that. All right, Fernando Navarrete. Absolutely agree with Micah. Programs like these are a fantastic way to see tax dollars going towards stimulating economic improvements locally.
I mean, ideally, this is like how we make our cities better. So I love seeing it.
Yep. Yeah, it's good for everyone. And you don't have fires burning down apartments. Is the flight deck handlebar fabricated using carbon fiber as its primary structural material? Not a fan of the material, especially if it's ever been dinged hard anywhere, it'll eventually explode. Yeah, I mean, carbon fiber kind of acts like glass in a lot of ways. But it does look like that's the material. I mean, this is a high-end handlebar. You're not spending $2,000 on a, $500 bike.
Yeah. Also, I think people who spend this much money on components, let alone their whole bike, like they don't let that thing get dinged,
Right.
Like it lives a better life than your bike, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I think just about anything lives a better life than my bike, though. Carl in San Diego, I met a guy on the train with a $325 full-size drift.slide mountain e-bike. It's hard to get my head around how cheap full e-bikes with disc brakes are selling for. Yeah, we do see some weird, like, I don't know how they, we've seen like Schwinn and Huffy type e-bikes that are coming in, significantly under $500. And I agree. I don't understand how they get the prices so low.
Yeah, I've never heard of that specific one, but yeah, I mean, a couple years ago was the Overstock. I don't know if that plays as big a role now, but yeah, there's
Right.
some crazy pricing out there.
Yeah, and he says that's $325 from Temu, and Temu is kind of known for dumping and whatever. All right, Seth, was that surfboard basically a toy for entertainment only, or could you use it to get places in the tropics? I think I answered that later on in the video, but I certainly think it's a thing that you can get places with, but you have to get good at it, so you're not going in the water all the time like I was, and B, you've got to have a place to put it in the water and get out of the water. But I think it would probably go most places that like a Sea-Doo, those kind of vehicles go, as long as you're good at it. Or you can keep it in the water and not foil, but I don't think you get the same efficiency. One thing I didn't mention during the video is like, you have a 1 to 15. I don't know why they chose 15, but in the handle, you got 1 to 15. And basically when I hit 6, I would start getting out of the water. But then once I was out of the water, I could drop it down to like, I don't know, 4, and would still keep foiling. So it was like very obvious that it takes way more electricity to keep when the thing is in the water than when you're foiling. When you're foiling, you're super efficient. So that was a little bit of a weirdness. Like when I finally got it, I would get up to 6 or 7, get out of the water, and then once I was out of the water, I'd drop it down again, just so I'd be going at a what felt like a nice speed. So yeah. Anyway, Carl in San Diego, does a surfboard use a leash or foot sensors as a kill switch? This one did not. The kill switch was in your hand, And basically, as soon as you fall off, you let off the accelerator. Mike, I don't know if the ones you used are like that as well.
So I've never seen a leash used as a kill switch. A few models I've tried have had a magnetic kill switch where it was like tied to your life jacket, or you could, put a leash on it. So if you fell off, it would yank a magnet off of the deck. Like, I guess it controlled a reed switch, and that was the kill switch. But yeah, usually like as soon as you let go of the button, like in your hand throttle, it'll stop going. With the exception of, there was actually this one electric surfboard that I tested several years ago during COVID, and I remember that, I don't know, I guess it was, I don't know if it was like Bluetooth or like what wireless it used for the connection, if it was like near field, but it couldn't transmit through water. So what they told me is like,
Yeah,
if you fall off
Bluetooth won't
holding
go through water.
throttle, yeah, so it had this quirk where if you fall off while holding the throttle and then you release it when you're already underwater, the board will keep going because it hasn't gotten the signal yet that you've let
Right.
off the gas or the electrons. And so, like, the first time it happened, I would just start getting like towed out to sea by this thing because I had a foot leash connected to it.
Oh,
And I had to remember to like stick my hand up out of the water so it could
okay.
like hear that I was no longer holding the button, and then it stopped. But for the
Yeah,
first like
so
second and a half, I was like, this is how I go.
Lyft did something smart there, or I guess they learned something. If the signal goes away, the motor turns off. So
That's
it's
good. Yeah.
constantly checking for a signal. So that's smart.
Yeah, this one was quite obviously like a American rebadged Chinese one that I think didn't have the more elegant programming that Lyft probably has.
Yeah. All right, Gandalf says New York City delivery e-bikes are utilitarian, heavy steel frame. That's true. No suspension. That's true. 60-volt rear hub motor. I don't know if that's true, but sounds right. Long, boxy aluminum battery. Not high speed, but they do have a throttle as riders rarely are pedaling. I guess it's, what is your thing of high speed? I've seen some pretty high speed ones. And also the batteries are huge. I wonder if some of them are lead acid or something. I don't know. I mean, they are huge. But, if it's 36 volts, and they're probably low priced and super dangerous. So, whatever gets the price down and the range up on those. All right. Carl in San Diego. I watched Long Way Up doc from a few years back and was surprised to see a lot of central pivot tadpole cargo trikes in use in South America. That's true. That's like it was like a Rivian documentary, or it was like a Harley / Rivian. Was
Yeah, I
it
mean,
Long Way Up?
the Harley was the bike and Rivian was the like support vehicle.
Right. And I guess there was some tadpole cargo trikes in use in South America. I think Seth's experiment with extreme snow testing is pretty interesting. You might want to share that with some companies so that they can rethink the weak recommendations. EV cars deal with extremes. Yeah, I really should get a review of this thing out after all this time. I mean, there's certainly been some issues, like the rear and front lights are just locked on, even if I turn the thing off and even if I push the button, which I thought was a fix. So I just unplugged the rear and front lights because I didn't want the battery to drain. But the drivetrain works great. So
And that's probably fine. I mean, the sun stays out notoriously long in winter anyway.
yeah. So yeah. Anyway, that's it for comments.
All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll be back here in another 2 weeks for another episode of the Wheelie Podcast. See you next time.